All right, my friends, we are here on a very special live stream event for RBH Sound. We're going to be discussing their new subwoofers as well as a subwoofer giveaway. That's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. Sorry about that. I had something going on in the background. Hey, folks, I'm Gene Delacello with Audioholics. We have RBH Sound in the house. We have Zach from Dreamedia, and we have Digital Don Dunn. How you guys doing?
What's up, Gene? Thanks for having us on today.
Awesome to have you on. It's been too long, Zach. I'm glad that you are back for 2025. And we're coming out strong by giving away a 12-inch subwoofer from RBH. I have the links in the video description below. You guys need to enter this before January 31st. If you're in the United States of America, please enter to win. There's no fee. You won't get charged for shipping, and you won't be notified by anyone other than Audioholics staff at the end of the contest to see if you won this prize.
And so now you'll know what it's like to be a shill.
Nice. With that said, I want to turn this over for a few minutes to Kenny and Shane Rich from RBH, because you guys have some new products. You've got some new subwoofers, and you want to discuss, all these different configuration options you have. Why don't you give us an overview of the subwoofer that's rotating right now? Because that's pretty small sub for an RBH product.
Exactly. So it is our S-12HPS, stands for high powered sealed. It measures in at 13.5 cubed. It features our aluminum driver and an 800 watt DSP controlled amplifier. So you get really precise control, customizability, and good long throw driver. So you have really good, powerful, clean bass in a small package.
And now these cabinets are made in the United States, just like your other products as well?
Correct.
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep.
Now, Shane, is this the same 12 that's in all your 12-inch box subwoofers?
No, we have several different 12s throughout our line of products. And this one is, what you'll find in our, we'll call it our more entry-level type product, although it's very, very similar to the performance of what you get in our high-powered 12 or a reference 12. Power handling isn't quite as much. But the characteristics of the sound are definitely, very similar. Of course, this is in a very small box. You're getting frequency response down to just under 30 hertz out of this this particular sub. 3 dB down point is, I think, rated at 29. But it has really a lot of output down into that region. And the fact that it's a sealed sub means that you've got a shallower roll off. So you're really getting usable output down into the 20 hertz region.
Now, do you have a DSP interface on this sub? So if I want to go in and do PEQ, or if I want to do any kind of adjustability, is that an option?
Yes. Yes, it is. You would have to get the software from us to be able to do that. But, it's certainly an option for those that want to dive in and have a PC to interface with it. Then, yes, you can do that.
Okay, so this is the actual subwoofer that you guys are giving away, sponsored by Dreamedia as well. Like I said, the link is in the description below. I think what's the price? The MSRP on the sub is what, 1,600 or 1,500, something like that?
1,600.
Gotcha. So now, why don't we talk about other RBH subs? Because you have a lot of 12-inch sub configurations. You even have on-wall subs. And one thing that's cool about this is you guys have the ability with the customization, because everything's made in the USA, to make custom cabinet sizes, and you could do on-wall subs, and there's advantages for that if you're doing Trinnov waveforming. Is that really the intent of why you came up with all these different configuration options?
Well, it's certainly one of the advantages of having all of those configuration options. We've been doing, custom product for years and years, quite frankly. We haven't maybe advertised that as much until lately, but over the decades that I've been here with the company, we've always had integrators, dealers that would call up and say, hey, you know, I really like the performance of this subwoofer that you have, but I've got this particular application where it just isn't quite fitting in. You know, what can we do? And so we've always prided ourselves, because we do so much here locally in the US with our cabinets, that we would come up with something that's going to be able to fit their particular application. In fact, I think we've done some of that with Zach, haven't we? With some of your customers, Zach?
Yeah, I was having a hard time not chiming in there because I am absolutely obsessed with my 1212 on walls in the formal. One of the requirements was we don't want to sub on the floor. You know, my wife didn't. We have a 4-year-old that's constantly running around in his little toy cars, and we want to be able to vacuum the floor. And the wife didn't want a subwoofer sitting on the ground, especially one with the type of output that I needed. And you guys sent over those 1212s, and I'll have to say I've been extremely impressed. I have them left and right of the room, flanking the formal underneath the window seals, and it was really the only location in the room to put any type of subwoofers. And I'm a big bass head. Like, I love infrasonics. Like, when you guys came out with your 21-inch subwoofer, it absolutely blew my mind and got me all juiced up about getting some bass into my formal. So was glad that we were able to find a solution that worked for that space. Big thanks to you guys at RBH, always coming up with those custom solutions so that us as integrators can get custom packages put into these homes, because every single space is unique and we need solutions.
Yeah, you know, Zach, I'm curious now that you've been doing RBH for well over 1.5 years, 2 years maybe. How many systems have you set up with that 21-inch sub? Have you actually got to listen and set them up and listen to one of the ones with the 21s in it?
Yeah, absolutely. And we have a project in Omaha, Nebraska that has 5 of them spec'd in. It's a $500,000 theater. And we want to do front, left, right, and center, right behind an acoustically transparent screen with 3 21s. And then at the rear of the room, 2 more. It's going to be like a 9.5.6 system and we actually elevated step down theater seating, 3 rows with 5 seats in each. It's going to be absolutely phenomenal. That one's going to take some time to come to fruition, but it's going to be killer.
Sweet. We got a couple of questions here. Shane, maybe you can answer some of these. Are those balanced XLR ins and outs with high pass through?
They are balanced. Yes.
Yep.
Inputs and the out. Well, it's just. Yeah, the output is just full range signal output. So there's no high pass output on the balanced outputs or the RCA outputs. So
yeah, so you really use that. You use that for daisy chaining.
Daisy chaining, exactly.
Yeah. I prefer that. I don't like doing bass management in the sub. If you could avoid it, it's better done in the processor.
Correct. Mm-hmm. Yep. That's typically the case, even though we have the capability, we have filter options, low pass filters for the subwoofer. We generally recommend that you start off with the LFE setting that's just going to pass everything through, that you're feeding it from your AV processor receiver. And like you said, do all the bass management if you can in the processor receiver.
Yeah.
Well, Shane, I've got a ported version of that sub with the reference driver, as you know, in my where I'm at right now, my little studio. And I just run it directly in and use the low pass filter on the DSP built into the sub, which is really convenient. So we've
got it there in case you need to use it. Absolutely. That is one of the settings that we have. But and so for a stereo setting, that's often the case. You can use that filter. Whereas if you're in a theater, oftentimes the best utilization of filters is in, as you know, the AV processor receiver. So, we accommodate everyone.
Well, the RBH 12-inch subs in all the configurations that you make them in, which is a lot, are among the most musical subs I've ever experienced in my entire career. which is a lot of subs, just to say. The dual 12. I mean, Zach, now I'm glad you got them at your house, Zach. You see what I'm talking about. Not only do they dig deep and play loud, not like the 21, but they dig pretty deep. But the impact, the going up to the transitional frequencies is just absolutely phenomenal. And the musicality it keeps up. Even their ported stuff, which usually I'm not a huge fan of ported subs. I don't know what kind of trickery you do, Shane, but you make ported subs sound like sealed subs, or real close.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Don. And honestly, that is one of the tricks of the trade, is the way that we tune our subwoofers is somewhat different than most manufacturers out on the market, quite frankly. And so we have more of a shelved design, which gives a little bit of natural roll off. But it allows it to dig deeper, and the effective Q of the system stays relatively low. So, yeah, some of our subs, like the one you have and the one Gene has in his theater room, they really, even though they're vented, they have a Q that's very much on par. And when I mean Q, that's the effective damping of the system. So, if you want something that has really relatively flat response and isn't going to ring much over time, that's what we call is designated by the Q being at least under 1. In our case, most of our subs are in the 0.7 range or a little lower, which is the maximally flat response. And, again, it gives you, in the end, that tight, accurate sound, whether you're using our sealed subs or our vented subs. They really have somewhat similar characteristics. The vented subs by nature usually have a little more output capability, and the sealed subs by nature have a little bit more extension than the vented subs, because the vented subs are going to be rolling off below the tuning frequency at 18 to 24 dB per octave, whereas the sealed subs are going to be rolling off at 12 dB per octave. So you get a little more extension. So going back to what Zach was saying, and well, you talked about a little with the 21, we can actually get the same very similar performance out of our 12s. We just have to use multiple 12s in a sealed box to give us similar performance extension wise to what we get out of the 21. But it takes a lot of them, actually six of our 12s to equal the output of that 21. Mm-hmm. So the 21 is really unique in terms of what it does for its size. For sure, even though it's a big sub, it's really unique in that it sounds like our 12s. It sounds
just
tight.
Just to give you perspective, I'm about 6 foot, so
beat me like one of your French girls, Jack.
Yeah.
Hey, Zach, did you put those? Did you flank the fireplace in the great room with those?
Yeah, I put them underneath the window seals. It was the only place in the room my wife would approve. Now I'm going to be putting out curtains flanking the room left and right. If you guys are curious as to what we're talking about, head over to the Dreamedia channel and check out some of the recent videos of my formal. It's like a 30 by, or maybe 25 by 60 foot room. I go over the exact dimensions in the videos, but massive space with like up to 20-foot ceilings in some spots. So massive room to get bass to actually respond in. And the dual 12s in my dedicated listening area, I'm very impressed with. They're nice and tight and punchy, which is what's most important to me. I hate muddy bass. So you guys knocked it out of the park. And then they're on walls, and they only sit 5.5 inches off of my wall, and I have like an inch of trim, so it's like 4.5 inches. I mean, you can't beat that type of performance and that compact form factor. I mean, there was nothing else that was going to be approved for my wife in that space, and now she loves sitting down and watching a movie in our formal, whereas before we had a Sonos soundbar. It was absolutely terrible. I mean, we couldn't even hear the dialogue in the kitchen because
wasn't so bad. I can't believe you put those nice subs in that dump you live in, man.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a
Side of
pretty
a
nice
mountain.
space. So it really, the RBH speakers are doing the room justice. Now, I didn't only do their subs, guys. You'll have to go watch the full episode. I put in the 8400 soundbar, which is a true dedicated LCR speaker, a dedicated left, dedicated right, and center speaker up underneath the TV on the mantle. And it has their massive AMT tweeters that just provide incredible clarity in the high frequency. And they have massive 4-inch woofers with those AMTs. So I'm getting good mid-range right out of my front soundstage. And then I got 6 overhead 8-inch woofers with AMT tweeters in ceiling, in addition to those 2 dual 1212 on walls. It's killer. And I don't know if I'm quite done with the upgrade, to be honest with you. I'd love a little more bass at the rear of the room.
Yeah,
More
well,
snacks
those,
and more
kitchen dining
problems.
space. That'd be cool.
those subs that you have in your room there, Kellen, yeah, they're really fairly unique too. Like you said, in that they're really. You have the on wall, right? Not the in wall. You've got the on wall.
Yeah, I got the on wall, but they're so slim. I run them without the grill. The grill adds like another 1/2 inch or 1/4 inch or something. But without the grill on it, I mean, it doesn't take up the walkway space. I mean, we have these cigar couches, and the big thing was like, we need to be able to walk through, the space. It still needs to be a functional living room. And we were able to accomplish that with those subwoofers.
Are those the SLs?
No, there's the SWs.
Okay.
Yeah, SW-1212 was the exact SKU.
So we have a question here. That's a good one because we're talking about the musicality of subs. Shane, Kenny, maybe you guys could chime in here. Do subwoofers play music 80 hertz and below, have discernible timbre, or not really, or so okay to mix match with other brands, mains, and satellites?
Yeah, that's excellent question. I will tell you that in what I perceive, mainly is the sonic characteristic. A lot of the sonic characteristic of a sub actually has to do with frequencies that are a little higher than 80 hertz. And so if you're rolling off at least 12 dB per octave, and sometimes you actually want to roll things off at a steeper rate than 12 dB per octave. If you can still localize your subs, then you may want to try a steeper filter. But do they sound different? Yes, there are differences in the sound quality, and a lot of it goes back to like I stated, the Q of the system, which is, again, describes how quickly that subwoofer in a box responds or reacts to an impulse response, where it's asked to move and then it's supposed to settle. Well, not all subs settle at the same rate. And so that, along with distortion characteristics. So, there is a difference, even if you have the same 80 hertz filter and even almost identical frequency response, there's oftentimes a discernible audible difference between different subs and how they sound, because they're those different parameters or factors that really your ear is picking up on when you listen to a subwoofer. So it's like I've seen there's been a lot of talk on another channel about our 21-inch subwoofer, and some people are saying, well, there's subs with even more output and more is better. Well, more actually isn't always better if it doesn't have, the kind of characteristics that really give you really accurate sound quality. So,
kind of like a mass without class in bodybuilding. You could have a bigger bodybuilder that has bigger muscles, but if they don't have the symmetry of an Arnold Schwarzenegger, it's useless.
Yeah, exactly. Or, you could, hey, it is 0 to 60. Let's say you've got a Hellcat and it goes 0 to 60. Or, let's say 1/4 mile in 10.5 seconds. Well, that might be different experience than a 911, Porsche 911 going 0 to 60, or 1/4 mile in 10.5 seconds. They may be equal speed, but the overall feel and sensation and how you travel down the road is quite different. And that can be the case with subwoofers, even when the specs look very comparable, or even if something is supposedly faster, or in this case, it's louder, is it, discernibly better? And we've all heard systems before that are really, really loud that don't sound very good. And then there's systems that can play at really high SPLs that sound significantly better, maybe even if they're a few dB off of as loud as maybe some other systems can play. But for subwoofer use, I love the 12s because the 12 is, I think, just a great overall size driver, and you can use multiple 12s to essentially give you the output that you want in most cases, and get the right kind of balance with extension, especially in a theater or music environment where you're wanting just a real good quality sound. A 12 is a great way to go, and that's why we kind of graduated from 10s up to 12s over the years. You know that, Gene. You had some of our dual 10-inch product, and they actually use the same motor structure essentially, but the 12 just seems to be a really good fit in terms of its output capability and
more cone area, a little more sensitive.
More cone area, more So. And again, the main goal in our 21 was trying to make it sound like our 12s. As Don knows, we did a system that mixed and matched 12s and 21s, which we can't say a lot about, but
8 12s, wasn't it?
Yeah.
8 12s and 2. Well, that was really the birth child of the 21-inch.
Yeah,
project.
It was. Yeah.
Yeah, those 12s alone were plenty. Like we think we a little over the top on that one, but and those are ported 21s. Like those are one-offs.
Yep.
Big boxes,
ported 12s and ported 21s that we did in that custom system that Don was working on, and it turned out great, at least from what I've heard. I have yet to hear it myself.
I'll add to the discussion
I didn't
about.
realize that project in Bowling Green, Kellen, our national sales director, just said it's going to have 12 21s.
Holy
I counted 10.
12. Yeah, well,
you're gonna blow the roof off of that place.
I mean, my mind was blown. The first time I came to Gene's house down in Florida and I heard the 21, my mind was blown. Then I came over there to you guys in Utah and heard your demo space at the RBH headquarters, and mine was blown. I've been wanting one in the house ever since, but 12?
Wow.
12 21s? That is going to be next level. We'll record that full install for you guys on YouTube.
You know, 18-inch subs were kind of rare in home theater. I mean, there was a few companies that made them over the years, and they were always usually flagships. And there's some really good ones like the Velodyne Digital Drive 18, the ULD 18. But it wasn't real common. Now there's this like, how big can we go trend now? And look, nobody's more about the bass than I am, but it's got to sound good. It's got to be musical. Just because you've got the displacement doesn't mean you're going to get the quality of sound you're looking for. Movies are pretty easy, but really good music, that's the test of a good subwoofer.
Yeah, and I'll add to the
Brian's system down in Florida. Remember when I was at the Florida Audio Expo down there? We went and demoed Brian's, and he has the dual 21 near field up behind him. And then is it just the one 20?
Yeah, then he's got the SVTRS up front.
Yeah, so there were a ton of subs in that room. He wasn't hardly using any of the bandwidth, but it was tight. It was responsive. It was super punchy. I mean, that was like riding in a high-performance sports car.
Well, there's the 12s he's got, too. He's got 12-inch subs in that room, too.
Yes. And it sounded incredible.
So just to further the comment, because that person was asked about mixing and matching subs, one thing I would caution people, especially if you're not very experienced at aligning subwoofers, is stick with either all sealed or all ported. You could mix and match, but you have to really know what you're doing. You have to know the high pass response of each sub. Otherwise, you will get cancellations below the tuning frequency of the ported subs if you have sealed subs thrown in there. Shane, as you know, I dealt with that a lot in my theater room when I added the 21 to the vented system that I have up front. So that's
and that's the reason to have a well-qualified integrator like these two guys, working on the system, because they know what it takes. If you do end up speccing that into your system, they know what it takes to get it integrated correctly.
Yep. Did you guys have other products you wanted to show? I thought Kenny said there was something else besides that 12.
Yeah. In fact, I think we're about ready to show it off here. The magic of video, here it is.
Whoa. I love your angles, by the way. RBH, you guys are stepping it up over there. Oh, yeah. Those new side panels. Ooh.
Hard to see, the video's a little overexposed, but yeah,
let me go turn down the brightness of the light.
Yeah, those side panels look good, guys.
Yeah, that's Kenny's doing. Kenny's the mastermind behind the decor or artistic effect of what we're doing with these panels. So, as you know, we've used acrylic polymer panels. Well, we should say baffles / panels for years. We even had them in the 8Ts that you had, Gene, on the front and back. And so they definitely help from a sonic standpoint. They really make the enclosure more acoustically inert and add stiffness and mass. And they look fantastic thanks to Kenny and what he's done with the designs. We have a number of different, basically, designs you want to talk about that a little, Kenny?
So I mean, everybody's different, right? So maybe this X pattern is a little too extreme for some people. We've got a lot more tame versions of the side panels, whether it's full face with a nice rounded edge, or we've got shapes with swoops to it. Lots of different possibilities to really customize the subwoofer to your liking. The product here is actually my favorite product of 2024 that we came out. It is the Unrivaled 12S, the sealed 12-inch sub with our best 12-inch driver, but it's built to unrivaled standards, which has the acrylic polymer side panels. It has Kimber cable on the inside. It's got the best damping materials we can come up with. It's got anti-resonance lining on the inside, and it's got our GAD system, which is the granular acoustic damping system, all built into one package. And the reason why I love it so much, it is by far the most musical sub I've ever heard. We're plus or minus a half a dB from 20 hertz to 100 hertz. And if you can imagine what that's like, it's incredible.
Very cool. Yeah. Shane, I want to see a version of this sub in Audioholics Smart Home.
Yes. Well, I think you will in the near future. You guys will all probably see some of that product relatively soon, whether it's installs or reviews or otherwise. This is taking some of what we have, of course, done in the past. There was a sealed 12-inch subwoofer when I came to RBH 30 plus years ago. And that's what brought me to RBH, as a matter of fact, was looking at a great sealed 12-inch sub. I thought I wanted to have my own, and it just so happened I also needed a job at the time, and I ended up assembling speakers 30 plus years ago here. And and I've owned, sealed subs, still have some sealed 12s at home, and I love the sound, as does Kenny. And Kenny's got a stack of 4 on each side, 8 total in his house.
I had the predecessor to this, so I built my own with the RBH driver, and just because I wanted a sealed sub, right? And So I built them. Shane came over and listened, liked it so much he had to beat me.
Well, it was just taking what we naturally, do with our product. I mean, we again integrated the granular acoustic damping, which definitely makes a difference. A lot of people don't understand the science behind the damping that's so important in any subwoofer, especially in a sealed system like this, where you're trying to dissipate that rear wave energy in the enclosure. Usually that's done through fiberglass or Dacron or wool, or, there are lots of different foam damping materials out there. And they take care of a certain band of frequencies pretty well. And what happens is the acoustic energy in the air vibrates alongside or in that material, and it causes friction, and it converts the acoustic sound energy into heat. Mm-hmm. Well, with the granular acoustic damping system, same thing happens. The air molecules are going through this granular substrate, and the friction there is converting energy into heat, acoustic energy into heat, but also the granular material starts vibrating together. And so you have this additional loss that occurs, that energy inside the cabinet. So it helps to, again, dissipate that energy, because you don't want the energy re-radiating out into the room through the cabinet. That's what makes for bass a lot of times. Even if you've got a great driver, if you don't have a really inert enclosure, a lot of that bass will radiate over time back through the enclosure into your listening environment. And so it can essentially muddy the sound when you hear the enclosure vibrating. And again, all of what we put into this unrivaled subwoofer is really for the benefit of getting rid of that excess energy, so that you're just hearing what's coming out of the driver itself.
Yep. We got another good question. I think I'll answer this one here. Contemplating a 2-sub system, other than filling the room with even bass, what are the perceived benefits? Will the system have less lower end roll off? So obviously we always preach about multi-sub. Biggest benefit of multi-sub is you get more consistent bass for a wider listening area. That way, when you use EQ to get rid of bass bumps in the room, it's effective for all the seats, not just a single seat with a single sub. As far as lower end roll off, you're not going to really extend the lower end roll off any differently if they're identical subs, but you're adding headroom to your system. So if you want to boost the low frequencies a little bit, you're going to have an extra 3 or 4 dB of headroom by having 2 subs instead of 1, even if they're not co-located, especially at the very low frequencies. What do you think about that, Shane? Do you agree?
Yeah, I do agree. And the fact is that you do get just a little bit more system sensitivity at the very lowest frequencies as you keep adding cone area. Yeah. It's just sort of the nature of physics, and that, it's a little easier to reproduce. So yeah, you may not get a lot more extension just by going from 1 to 2 subs of the same size. But certainly you'll get more dynamic range. Certainly it can help, as you stated, with what's happening in the room acoustically due to the room modes, and evening things out and getting a more uniform response in the room. Your room is sort of the master class in how that it happens, right, Gene?
Yeah, really.
So, I mean, Gene's pretty extreme when it comes to, he wants the exact same bass experience for every single person in the room. And yeah, there's Zach raising his thumb too. I think, Don's got phenomenal bass in his room as well. It's what we all like to hear. And sometimes you can only hear it to its best. Maybe things are tuned right at the listening position. And so going actually back to what you talked about with, why we developed some of these other subs, there's this new thing that Trenoff is doing, their double bass array / waveforming that allows you to get extremely uniform bass within a room. We did a thing with Shane Lee where we provided some subs for him, and in fact, Trenoff sending me one of their Altitude 32s right now so that we can look at implementing waveforming in our demo room here in the offices. So I'm really excited about that. All of those things are really in a way sort of game changers as to what kind of bass experience you can have within a room. Of course, Storm and Dirac and those companies, Dirac using their ARC system, they have a slightly different method, but that's also, again, to help every seat in the house have very uniform bass response.
Yeah, the other benefit of multi-sub, especially if you have both of your subs located up towards the front of the room, is you can raise your crossover point without localizing the bass source. So I've noticed that years ago when I was setting up satellite systems that didn't have a lot of bass capability below 100 hertz, when I added that second sub, put them up against the front wall, towards the corners of the wall, I was able to raise the crossover from 80 hertz to 100 hertz to give the whole system more dynamic range, and you never localize the bass. So that's another advantage of having more than one sub if you want to extend your dynamic range in that 80 to 120 hertz range.
Yeah, and that is a critical place, isn't it, in terms of, especially, whether it's music or movies, there's just so much of what we perceive as bass energy in that region. It's pretty important to be able to have really ample dynamic range in that bandwidth to really get a great experience for bass frequencies.
Yeah, and make sure you guys design a system accordingly. I see on a lot of the forums where people have these little satellite speakers, like 5.5-inch, 6-inch two-way, and then they have an array of 18-inch subwoofers across the front wall. So they've got 130, 140 dB of dynamic range in the subs, and their speakers won't play louder than 95 dB. You can't have that imbalance. You have to have a system that has good dynamic range.
RBHs shine.
Well,
these tweeters are going to keep up.
So yes, I would say that there is merit certainly to that. Yeah, if you want the full dynamic range or the full bandwidth, that's really what makes, in my opinion, music or movies just a really spectacular experience. Is hearing and feeling that. But then again, there are people that I know. One of them on this screen here that I'll never forget when the neighbors from across the street and 2 houses down came over and knocked on Don's door as we were listening to
open range
to the system, and he said, "I just got to figure out where that sound is coming from, where the bass is coming from." I mean, and Don's got very capable main speakers. He's got our top of the line SVTR speaker system, so very capable, really dynamic, mid-range and tweeter, of course, but he's got an excess of bass. He's also got some great GTR, RTG subs, right, in your room, and those are fantastic as well, adding to the system. So, but some people like that sort of extreme dynamic,
high testosterone level bass.
Well, yeah, my testosterone's too high. So it's if you have a Porsche twin turbo, a Porsche twin turbo, you're not going to go 180 miles an hour all the time, but it sure is more fun when you're going 0 to 60. Having that headroom is very important. Nobody ever talks about that. Having the headroom, because having that tons of headroom is going to make it sound better at lower volumes as well as the extreme high volumes.
Yeah, but you want to have the headroom all the way up the bandwidth too.
For sure.
That's what.
Yeah,
that's
you
what
can't put little
I see these
tiny.
little satellite speakers with a base array of subwoofers on the front wall, and I kind of cringe. But anyways, I'm going to answer one last question. I think we're going to wrap this up in a minute here. So somebody is asking, what about multi-sub for near-field tactile? So I have mixed feelings about near-field subs. They don't always solve problems. They can create more problems than they solve. They don't always get rid of nulls that you think they're going to get rid of, and they can be easily localized. And in fact, I had a relatively near-field sub behind me in the back left corner that was maybe 3 or 4 feet from my listening area. I can sense the pressure wave of that subwoofer because it had dual 12s. It was ported, and it shifted my focus towards the back of the room when I was hearing the bass. And that's why I had Shane swap it out for a sealed one where there was one driver firing on the floor and one driver firing towards the listening area. That really helped. So you got to be careful with near field subs.
You do. I think traditionally you probably need a steeper low pass filter roll off for the sub when it's near field. I mean, and so that's just a given. I think that's the answer to getting things right. But sometimes, yeah, it's getting the right subwoofer there. I know, Zach, you've experienced this in Brian Hager's room. You don't hear so much the sub, but you feel like somebody is kicking the back of the chair, kicking the back of the sofa. I mean, you're almost in this compression bubble. And he's got the near field dual 21s, near field, I should say. And you know, they don't really call attention to themselves except when the whole sofa feels like it's going to move forward 2 or 3 feet.
It's like when you power up a high performance sports car and you feel the exhaust just through your bones, you know, it's an experience.
No, what you think it's your sub, but what it is Brian's got a button rigged, and a little door opens, and a little dwarf comes out with a hammer and starts hitting the back of the couch.
You need to experience it. Well, Don, have you been to Brian's place to check that out? You and Gene both need to go there.
Oh, you have to, guys. He
Gene won't go more than 20 miles from his house.
If he doesn't vent the home, the whole house sounds like it's going to fall down.
It probably is going to fall down eventually. Yeah.
But it's a very unique near field bass experience and one done right, in my opinion. You do have to dial it in carefully, no question about it. And everybody's room acoustics are a little bit different. Gene, your room, you know, your subs are right close to the rear wall, whereas in Brian's case, his sub behind the seat is right in the middle of the room. So that certainly can make a difference in how it's perceived. So it's, you know, each room is going to require potentially a little different setup and treatment to get what you want. And again, that's why having really knowledgeable integrators is so darned important. And we rely on them exclusively to be able to bring that experience to people, even though we feel our products are some of the best on the market. If you don't have people that know how to integrate it into your room correctly, you may not end up with the best experience. So these guys are worth their weight in gold, you know, that are out there doing that. So thank you for doing it right.
Yeah.
Last one I want to answer. Actually, this is a good one here. Damn, where is it? Okay. Would a near field sub interfere with waveforming? Yeah, you can't do that with Trinnov waveforming. You have to have very precise locations for the subs. You have to have them up against the front middle wall and towards the back middle wall in order to get the best usage of waveforming. So you can't just randomly put subwoofers anywhere you want. You'd probably be more suited towards a direct art kind of approach if you wanted to do something like this.
Yeah, potentially that's true. What you ought to do is you ought to go to Trinnov's website. They have a white paper on there, and it sort of spells out the type of configurations in general that you would maybe want to consider given your room size and how to configure those subs on the front and back wall. So, you can learn a lot about it just going to their website. So for the person that was asking the question, I suggest you go and just look at that. And they even have a configurator where you can put in your room dimensions and it'll show up a little graphic as to where the recommended placement is for the subwoofers on the wall, on the front and back walls. So, and how many you need. Now, if you're in a room where your seating position is up against the back wall, I don't know. I haven't really sat right back against a wall with waveforming. Shane Lee's place is about as close as I've gotten. He's maybe 3 or 4 feet the seating position off of the back wall. It still sounded really, really good there. And I know, like in Teo's place where he's doing the ARC, the Dirac ARC, process for bass treatment of his room or getting room correction. That his seating was closer to the front, wasn't towards the rear, but I can say he got great bass in his room as well with our subwoofers in that room. So I think, there are a lot of different configurations and a lot of variation. It's just, again, knowing how to set it up. As you know, Gene, how long did Teo have to spend? Like 30 hours?
Well, yeah, because Dirac Art's got some issues, some blemishes that need to be addressed for dealing with full range speakers. So he had more patience than I did in my system. So mine's off right now, but I will get there eventually.
Yeah, we're potentially working on that, I know. So and there, even if you don't have those real high dollar room correction systems, there's still a lot of great performance that you can get without having a really, really high dollar correction system.
Well, just even manual EQ is just the ability to get REW, which is a free software, Room EQ Wizard, get a microphone, a UMM6 or a Dayton, one of the Dayton audio microphones or a UMic 1, $80, $120 investment. Do the measurements, measure each of the subs, measure them together, do some basic EQ, and you can get there, and then just adjust your target curve to the bass levels that you like. And it really depends on taste and also the room, how the room is laid out.
They're going to start putting OCD warnings on all the room correction systems. If you have OCD, please be aware that he might spend 6 months in his room trying to figure it out, chasing the way around.
You're going to spend the rest of your life. If
you're into it like I think we're talking about you.
I do take 1 minute to point out for everybody watching this. Dreamedia offers free consultations. So you send us over pictures of your room. We can even fly out to your house and we will take time to hand curate packages specific to your exact space. Getting the configuration right is half the battle, and getting the room set up properly. We'll do 3D renderings, full acoustic analysis, lay out all your speakers, and we can not only offer all of the products, but also the installation and calibration, white glove service from start to finish. So utilize that service, guys. You're not in this alone.
Yep. Yeah. And I put some links to Dreamedia in the video description. So whether you want to buy some RBH products, those links are there. I also put the consultation link for you, Zach. So you should be set up on that.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You got it. I put the links, like I said, to the RBH contest. That contest is doing really well. I think we have over 8,000 entries already. So make sure you enter to win within the next couple of weeks. This is a really good one. So I think that's about it. Unless Shane, Kenny, do you have anything else you want to add, or do you want to just wrap this up at this point?
Oh, I mean, well,
just to mention this,
just a brief highlight. So as you know, Gene just got your product of the year for best budget tower, and we just wanted to highlight it and say we appreciate that award, and it's really a fun speaker. It's actually one of my favorite pairs of speakers to listen to, and I need 15 minutes to regroup, and I've got my pick of the litter here at the office. I can listen to the SVTRs, the 8300s. I'll just put these on because I love them so much.
Kenny, will those sound better in red?
For some people, yes.
They might, yeah.
For you, Don,
Psychoacoustics.
absolutely.
So there's a side firing woofer that you're not seeing on that cabinet. There's an 8
Yeah.
inch, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's an 8-inch side firing woofer. It's placed in a way where it's really phase coherent with the top tweeter mid range. So it's really special speaker.
Yeah,
And they're only about 1,400 a pair.
Yeah, 1445 right now.
Yep. Yep.
So
Awesome.
you'd given that speaker what was the word Audioholics had given it? The budget speaker award for this past year. Budget Tower. And it's again, one of my favorites too, just because you can get so much out of this small little tower. It's really
bass extensions down to the 30 hertz range.
Yeah, you can get 12-inch-ish type extension out of this little tower, 12-inch subwoofer type extension, I should say, out of this little tiny tower. It's I think that's part of the allure, is that it just does way more than you would ever expect a little tower could do. And so, it's been a lot of fun this last year to showcase that.
Before we shut this down, I wanted to say how incredibly happy and grateful I am. I know, Gene, you've been working with RBH forever. You brought me into that family, and I'm super grateful to you, Zach, for taking a chance to really get behind this incredible line, because I mean, you can call them up, you can talk to Kenny, they can design you something. You just get that personalized touch that you just don't get with every speaker company out there. It's a good group of people. They make an incredible product. Their architectural stuff down to their subs, their box speakers. That makes me very happy. You guys are really starting to get some traction, in the mainstream.
Well deserved too, Don.
Very much.
I'm very glad you turned me on to them. After hearing it down in Florida, I was obsessed with the sound signature, and then after meeting you guys over there in Utah, touring the facility and seeing this small group of guys that's just so passionate about quality sound, I'm proud. I'm honored to carry RBH.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Yeah.
All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap. Appreciate you spending the time here, dropping the knowledge. And Zach, Shane, Kenny, I appreciate you guys doing this contest giveaway for the benefit of our USA viewers. That's awesome. I love giving away free swag, free product.
Poor guy in Norway can't enter the contest, man. That's terrible.
Yeah, we can't do global contests yet, unfortunately, but maybe one day.
Oh, I got one more thing. Man. You know what I'm going to throw in with this too is we're going to sell some hats now. See these hats that me and Gene are wearing? Maybe we can add the links. Oh,
even with the little captain.
So we're going to start getting some swag going for you guys, so everybody can join the Dreamedia family. We're using a couple of the industry's favorite terms, reference level and hi-fi is kind of going to be the two brands that we're using. And then on the back, they have Dreamedia and a little equalizer on the side. And that's on the Dreamedia website right now.
I don't think mine has an EQ on it. Oh, yeah, it does.
Oh, you got one.
All right, guys. Well, that is a wrap. If you like this video, please hit the thumb up, hit subscribe. Don't forget about our Patreon channel at patreon.com/audioholics. We appreciate your support. You get direct access to me if you want to suggest video topics. And until next time, my friends, keep listening.
Say it, Zach. Say it. Say it.
Smash that subscribe button.